Hello everyone, welcome to Bella Vista Salesforce Developer Group. Thanks for registering and joining the session. We have Andrew with us who's sharing the flow series this entire month. It's each week, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Sydney time, and this is the second week. And a little bit about myself. My name is Shaktivel Madhes. I'm a Salesforce MEP and community group leader for the Bella Vista Salesforce Developer Group. I'm working as a senior Salesforce developer, Tech4 Services. It's a Sydney-based Australia company. And I'm actively available in the social channels, so you can reach me in the social channel. Thank you to our sponsor for the Trailblazer community group and Validity Inc., who sharing with the swag to all the participants. So only thing, the participant just to go to the link and fill your contact information. Once again, thank you, the Validity Inc. team, for your support to the community. So the agenda, yes, this is the week 2 session, flow series. Andrew sharing with us about the enhancing opportunity management and Spring 21 release features. And as I mentioned, go to this link, bit.ly/bv swag, and fill your information to get the swag from the Validity Inc. team. And also, the end of the 4th week, we are planning to provide the 4 Salesforce certification voucher to the random participant. So make sure fill your proper information. The group overview, yes, don't forget to join the group to participate in our activities and informed by email. So simply go to the BVCS SFDC, the link, and join the group button using the group button from the community page. And also we have the chatter group on Twitter and LinkedIn, and even the YouTube channel here where we recorded the session and uploaded. So actively available in those channels as well. And also, not only this group, get involved in the other community as well. In Western Sydney, we already have that admin group, and this is the developer group. And even Sydney, we have multiple group as already there. So try to participate and involve in the community, either as a participant or speaker. Celebration, yes, if you are a Trailgate Ranger or you recently completed any certification on any super batches, share your success in the chat window. We will celebrate your success in the community. So news and updates and announcement. So this Einstein AI academic course provide an opportunity to learn how to identify the potential customer or how to position for the AI in your deals, and how to build and extend the prediction with no code. I will show you that link actually. So maybe you can try to explore. The Salesforce team created the industry video course about the Einstein Prediction Builder. This course helps like admin build the custom prediction for your business with simple point and clicks. So this contained the 12th chapter. So Salesforce team created the interesting video. So this and also finally the end of the chapter, you will have an opportunity to earn the certificate. It's called, I think it's a Einstein academic or something. It's a kind of completion certificate. So I will share this link in the chat window just to go and explore about the Einstein. And also the next one, the important thing, like Salesforce developer survey. It's survey available from January 27 to March 7. So simply go here. It's like a few minutes of your time to help the Salesforce team to understand what programs or events or resources you want to see in the future. So it's a few minute survey. So go ahead and complete the survey. Other than that, I can say the Spring 21 updates already available. You can see the release notes also, and the production rollout will be happening during this weekend. So please aware about that. Some of the new features available about the Spring 20. Even this today's session, Andrew sharing some of the Spring 21 release features about the flow, and that the Trailgate module also available in the module called Learn More. So go ahead and explore. The Salesforce certification days, it's available, the free webinar on March 2021. So if you are planning any certification, any basic certification like admin certificate or developer related, go to attend the seminar and you will get the $100 free voucher. Along with you can prepare all the necessary contents also. And finally, the developer quick takes playlist available from the Salesforce developer YouTube channel. I will show you here. Maybe it's useful for preparing. So this is the Salesforce developer channel, YouTube channel. So here the Salesforce, the development team keep on adding the small video. The video's length is minimum 10 minutes only. They keep on adding some new videos, the recorded videos. So try to go and explore it. And there's one more thing actually I can show you here, the release notes. The release notes now available under the help menu. If you navigate in the trailblazer.salesforce.com, if you click here under the documentation section, and you can see the release information, Spring 21 release notes, and you can check all the topics over here. And if you want to navigate with the previous version also, it's available. So ideally the release notes, they moved under the help section. And this Spring 21, one of the important, the beta thing they released. So here you can access the TrialGate from inside Salesforce org, and even you can customize the module that should be appear in your user also. If you see here this icon, it's while clicking this icon, it's appear in the in-app learning, and you can add the TrialGate module also. So if in case your user want to learn about any particular topic, yes, that feature is available. It's a beta version. So upcoming meetings, yes, this is the second week for the flow series. We have the next week also. So try to participate and explore about the Salesforce flow. So this is the link. So try to go ahead and register your spot. And finally, share your love to social channel about the Trailblazer community groups and leaders or speaker to social channels using this tag. So then that it's over to Andreas. Go ahead and introduce about yourself, and then go ahead today's session.
Thanks, Saktaville. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, guys, and if I can get at least 1 or 2 people saying in the chat they can see it, that'll be great as well. So firstly, let's start off by welcoming everyone again. Welcome back for week 2 of 4. So hopefully you guys are all excited off the back of the first week we did, and you're ready to go for this week. Quickly, just a quick introduction of who I am. My name's Andrew Fragias. I'm a customer success manager at Validity. I've been a Salesforce admin and in the Salesforce space for about 4 years now, if not longer. I've managed Salesforce CRM, Salesforce Marketing Cloud implementations. I've also consulted businesses on marketing and business strategies. I'm a Salesforce certified admin and a Salesforce Trailblazer answer leader. So in saying all that, firstly, I want to say thank you, Saktaville, for having me. We've got a lot of content to get through today, guys. I know you guys are going to have lots of questions. I'm going to try my best to answer as many as possible. I'm going to pause at the end of each section to see what the questions are in the chat. So without any further ado, we're going to get straight into it now. So what we're going to go through today, firstly, is the Spring 21 release review. Following that is the opportunity management flow demos. I'm going to show you some of the features from the release as well. Looking at the release, the first thing that I saw that stood out is you have the ability now to adjust forecasts on the Salesforce mobile app. Previously, you weren't able to do that. Now you have the ability to do that. So you can go into the app, as you can see in the screenshots here, in the More section, click Adjust, and be able to adjust your forecasts on the go. It's a lot easier for sales managers now. So, for example, if I'm in a sales room, I'm managing my team, I no longer need to go back to a desktop and sit down and manage my forecasts. I can adjust them on the fly. Cool. Moving forward on to the next one. New one here, and this one's a big one as well, is Einstein Recommendation Builder. So this delivers AI-driven personalized recommendations to customers by matching records from one Salesforce object to another. For example, recommend the best products for an account. You can fully configure this and it will help identify how this matching occurs. You tell Einstein which objects to learn from and customize your settings and put your Einstein recommendations to work in the best action strategy. It's quite handy when it comes to understanding your customer. Like, at the end of the day, a CRM is, the whole purpose of it is understanding a full 360 view of your customer and their engagements with your business and making the best of that information. And this takes that to a whole new level with that prediction. The recommendation builder supports all custom objects and most standard objects. So be sure to check the release notes for what can be supported and what can't be supported. So before you go ahead and try this out. Dynamic actions for accounts, leads, opportunities, and cases are finally GA. They were beta. Previously, they weren't even beta. So now we have them GA. So also on top of that, we have dynamic actions for custom objects, GA for mobile. Dynamic actions for account, case, contact, lead, and opportunity at GA for desktop. What is a dynamic action? You might be thinking is you have the ability on your Lightning App Builder now, when you're building a page layout, to show and hide actions based on particular criteria. So you can see in this screenshot that number 2 bit there is the ability to add a filter. And you can filter, for example, the viewing user is a member of the sales team in Sydney, for example. Or you could do something like where the opportunity has a particular status. We want to show them the add quote button. So if the opportunity, let's say, is in qualified, you want to show the add quote button. Otherwise, if it's prospecting, we don't want the quote button to appear. Dynamic actions for all other standard objects are still beta for desktop. So the big main objects are now GA. The other ones are beta at the moment. Moving on to the next bit. So do more with opportunity products. This gives you a lot more flexibility. You can use your opportunity products, track information on the opportunity product records. For example, a rep wants to track 2 delivery locations in a related list for an opportunity product record. Now you can create an object relationship and page layout to make that happen. Before, there was a lot more restrictions around the customization of opportunity products. So this gives you a lot more flexibility and also goes back to that whole 360 view, right? Enhancing that view of your data. Next part here is manual sharing. Finally is in Lightning Experience. This is a long-awaited transition of functionality from Classic to Lightning. The amount of times I've gone to manually share a record and I couldn't because that functionality wasn't there is I can't even count anymore how many times I've done that. And I know there are quite a few admins out there that were patiently waiting for this to happen, and developers and anyone else, users as well. And finally, this is here. So if you wanted to go ahead and manually share, for example, a price book, you can, a product, a opportunity, whatever it may be, the share button is now available and the share options in Lightning. Multi-add fields to reports. Now, this is an interesting one. This allows you to go search for the fields when you're customizing, creating reports and add them in bulk. So say, for example, I wanted to add those 3 fields highlighted, state, ID, and group. All I have to do is, if you're using a PC, for example, click and control. So left click and control as if you're multi-selecting, right? And drag that across. And you can also multi-remove fields. Another thing for reports that came in, I haven't listed it here, but also the preview of the reports is a lot faster now and generates automatically. So it's a lot easier with a limited number of records. It's not timing out. So there's a lot more enhancements around the preview aspect of reports. Some additional highlights. Customize your default no reply address for email notifications. So if you have auto replies on before the Spring 21 update, certain email notifications automatically send from the no reply at salesforce.com. When you send case notifications from system address is on. So that's one example. You can now choose who that from address is for certain case related notifications. Say, for example, I wanted to send it from Sackville. I can say from Sackville instead of saying from no reply at salesforce.com. PowerUp recently viewed lists with customizable actions. So the recently viewed list view didn't have customizable actions before. Now, it allows you to bring that in line with all your other list views on that particular object. So you might have particular custom actions on your list views, but it wasn't showing in the recently listed view. Customize field mappings for contact and event sync. So this brings a lot more customization to it when you're syncing across your contacts and events. Add Zoom meeting links to events created using insert availability. Now this one's handy because obviously looking at the workforce as it is at the moment, everyone is working from home. Yeah, they're using Zoom or something else. I know for a fact that I use Zoom pretty much every day, right? This is pretty handy for anyone. If you wanted to go and schedule a meeting with your customer, it will create that Zoom link for you, auto-generated, and send it across. And finally, it looks like I've repeated myself, but I said customize field mappings for contact and event sync. So this is one section done. Before I move on to the flows, I'm going to look at the chat to see if there are any questions. No, there is no questions at the moment. Easy, too easy, guys. All right, I'm going to keep going on into the flows section. So what's new in flows? And this is Lightning Flow is now known as Salesforce Flow. So a little bit changing terminology. You're going to be seeing that a lot more now, so be familiar with the term as Salesforce Flow. Another big one is refer to prior values of a record that's been updated. I'm going to show you an example of that, and that's pretty cool, right? So you can use that in comparisons in filtering. You can refer to the values prior to the update occurring when you have a record triggered flow on update. A whole bunch of debug enhancements came in and are coming in with Spring 21. And those enhancements include debug directly on the canvas, support scheduled triggered flows, updated text in error emails. I'll show you an example of what that updated text looks like. Ability to show query limits, easier failed flow debugs, accurate information added. So it's a lot more accurate. The wording of it has been updated as well. Access more output values from Flow Builder custom property editors as well. So there's a lot more output values. If you use surveys in your org, you're now able to schedule surveys from actions inside Flow Builder. So if you're using Flow, you use the action option. You can now schedule surveys from there, customize them and everything else. And a new one that's in beta, and I've seen a lot of people in the Salesforce community asking about this, and that is multi-column screen. So you can now have multi-column screens. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show some examples now. So give me 1 second. I'll stop sharing that. And so far, is there any questions before I start showing examples? No. Okay, cool. Share screen. You should all be able to see in about 2 seconds time an email I got. As you can see here in this email, there's a lot more information here. They've changed the wording around it. It makes a lot more sense if you're reading it. In particular, you've got a lot more understanding of what the error message is when you get that email from Flow. Okay, so let's get cracking into this. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys is a flow that's using Spring 21. I've got multiple environments because I've got one environment that has Spring 21 and one that doesn't. This one here has Spring 21 in it. I'm using the auto layout for the flow, and this is going to be using prior values. So what I've done prior to this, some prerequisites, I've created a multi-select pick list, and also I have created a custom object that relates to the opportunity called Opportunity Audit. What I'm going to do here is this is a record triggered flow, and looking at the configuration here, do I have to zoom in for you guys? Would that be easier? I think I'll zoom in a little bit because last time we had to zoom in. Yep, there we go. Perfect. Just a quick question came in, multi-column screen. Yes, that's for inflows, the multi-column screen. So this is going to be for record is updated and after the record is saved. So this is record triggered flow, record updated after the record is saved. So we can then use prior values in this. This is going to be on the opportunity object, and the condition that is met, I'm going to set is the is closed field, is a standard field, equal to false. Now what I set for false, if you're not familiar with setting this, is in here, there is a global constant value of false, which is the equivalent of unchecked, no, and false, right? Or if you wanted to set true, the equivalent true, you use the global constant value true. And I want this every time the record is updated and meets the condition requirements. Because my use case here is I'm creating an audit record. So I want to audit every time the record is updated. Going through here, the first thing we have here is a decision. So looking at our decision element here, we have three aspects of the decision. And the decision is looking, is changed product of interest? Has the product of interest field changed during the update that just occurred? Now, some of you may be thinking, why didn't I use this in the trigger? In the trigger at the beginning, you can't reference fields to equal each other, right? And you can't use the prior value yet. Whereas in the decision, you can use the prior value. So the first thing we did here is we're taking the record value of product of interest. So the product of interest is essentially taking that value from the record that started this. And it does not equal the prior value. So to get to the prior value, all you have to do is when you click into here, it is under the section here, record underscore underscore prior. And then you select the field you want the prior value from. So ours is product of interest in this instance. And that's how you get your product of interest prior value. Now, the first condition here is also ANDed with another condition. And that is the next steps, because we want to audit two things, the product of interest changing and if the next step changes. So our happy path, which means everything is success, means that next step is also changed. So we've done the same thing. In this instance, we want to put it as equals. And this is saying that the next step has not changed. So prior value is the equivalent to the same value as it is now on the record, whereas the product of interest has changed. That's our first branch. Our second branch is saying, and the only difference here is the does not equal, is saying the product of interest has changed as well as the next step has changed. Now, it's crucial we split this up because the actions that come afterwards and the records that are created are different based on the different scenarios. And finally, we've got a default path, which is the no path. So looking at this, if we go down here, our no path is then branched off into other sections. So I've actually gone ahead and done this. And what I've done in the first path here is in the yes path, remember before we were checking if only product of interest was changed. So what I've done is I've added a create records and I'm creating that custom object I created, opportunity audit, a record of that. And I've used separate resources and literal values. So the field name, I've inserted a hard-coded value. So this is a value I've typed up, which means every time this runs, it'll be the same value. For the field, the new value, I'm referencing the value that is on the record right now. The opportunity, which is a lookup, I'm referencing the opportunity ID that's from this record. So again, to get to that, you just go to that record.id. The prior value is taking the record prior value for the product of interest. So in this, essentially, you're going to have the current value and the old value. Who triggered it? So which user triggered the update? And what was the date time? And what I did for the date time was I used the flow current date time. So that will take the date time right now when this is triggered. Rather than trying to set a value or pulling a value from somewhere else, there is a set value here that you can use. You just go flow current date time. You can use current date as well or interview start time. And that's it for that first path there. We're only creating one audit, and that's because the product of interest has changed. Now, guys, if you have questions along the way, chuck them in the chat. I'll reach them at the end of this flow. The next one is the opportunity, the product of interest has changed as well as the next step. So what we've done here, the first one, the exact same thing here. and that's the product of interest one. That's the exact same create records over here. What I did, I just clicked copy element, and then when I went to create it here, there's an option here to paste it. So I'll show you how that looks. I click copy element and click in, you paste copied element. This is in the beta layout, by the way. Then the next one, I mapped all the details for the audit of the next step. So in this path, we're creating 2 audits. Again, field name, hard coded that. That's the next step. The new value is the record, the next step value. So the current value on it, the opportunity ID again. The prior value, we reference that prior value, which we can now use thanks to the Spring 21 release. Triggered by is the user ID that triggered the flow. Add trigger date time is the current date time again. So far we have 2 paths. We have a path that the product of interest changes, and we have a path where the product of interest changes and the next step changes. The default outcome path was a no path. Now what we did for that is we need to cater for if the next step changes as well. Now what I could have done, I could have made a 4th path to make it easier, but I wanted to branch it out to show you the use of multiple decisions. So going into decision now, and this one here is looking at our record next step has changed and does not equal prior next step. Now the reason I don't have to check again in this conditioning if the product of interest has not changed is because to get to that point, I've already checked it. I checked it in the first one. If it failed there and then failed the second one, it's going straight to this one. Right? It's very important, that part, because there's no point re-evaluating that condition here. Now, if that's no, we'll end it straight away. If that's a yes, we'll go ahead and create our audit record again. Again, I've copy pasted that across here. So I don't have to map it again. It's very easy. Now, I'll get a record up for you and show you what that looks like quickly. While I'm doing that, is there any questions you want to have? Chuck it in the chat, guys, and I can answer them on the way. So I'm going to grab a record here, and we can see that this record, once it's loaded for me, has not closed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit 2 fields, click the edit button, and I'm going to edit the next step and the product of interest. And from there, it'll generate the audit record. Now, if I find those fields, so next step, I'm going to change this to, we'll call the customer now. And we'll go down product of interest. We had at the moment, Demand Tools, Grid Buddy, Cloud, and Webcam. I'm going to add also they're interested in iPhone 12 and headphones. Once I click save, it's going ahead and running my flow. And if I go to related now, I've got that custom object, and I go down to the most recent one because I've got a couple here. That's from my testing before, but you can see product of interest, the prior value was that. Because it's a multi-select pick list, it writes it as a semicolon delimited list. And then this is now our new value. The user, the date time. It's currently, as you can see in the bottom of my screen, it's 5:29 p.m. in Sydney. And then the next one here is the next step. Email customer is now called customer. Again, it's by my user. All right, I'm going to pause now, take some questions, have a look what has come in. So can we have action record undelete in trigger flow? You can have a record triggered flow based on delete that then recreates the record. So if you're worried, you don't want to lose particular opportunities, you can create, I did this for a talk about a couple of talks ago when the Winter 20 release was out, I believe. You got the delete as record triggered. And you can then use that to then create a record or audit it and write all the values of the deleted record to an audit so you don't lose that. Fault path in the flow. This has been there for a while. I haven't touched on this yet because this is something that's a bit more complex. Fault paths are usually there in case it doesn't meet certain conditions or criteria. It's best practice to include fault paths. So as the name suggests, it's essentially if something goes wrong, it will do the next action and you'll choose what that action is. So if it gets to that element and for some reason you have incorrect ID mappings or let's say I've mapped fields incorrectly. I've put this live in production, this flow. I've got a fault path that if it goes wrong when it goes to create the record, it will notify me. It'll send me an email, or it'll do something else, right? We'll then go ahead and do that. You choose what those actions are in the fault path. I think it's fairly new, the fault path. Don't know how long it's been there for, but yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm moving on to the opportunity management flows now. So we've got quite a couple opportunity management flows to get through now. I'm going to go ahead and change my tab. The first one here is a renewal-based one. So the business case on this is, just to round it off, guys, by the way, finished talking about Spring 21 highlights and some of the features of that. We're now moving on to the second part of the session. So the record triggered flow, what we want to achieve here is whenever someone closed an opportunity, I want to create a renewal opportunity. Let's say, for example, the company that I work for, that I'm the admin for, is a subscription-based company. So for subscriptions, you would have a renewal, right? You want to make sure you contact that customer and make sure they are renewing. Look for a chance of uplift, if there is any uplift. Some of you might say, yep, this is covered by CPQ, but some people, you don't have the luxury of something being covered by CPQ or having CPQ even in your Salesforce. So you can build out a flow that essentially creates your renewal opportunity for you. It's very simple. So you have a record trigger flow. Again, I'm in my auto layout function. The record is updated. And again, we're using the after the record is saved function. So if you remember to last week where we talked about before the record is saved versus after the record is saved, reason we're not using before the record is saved is because before record saved essentially allows you just to manipulate data on the object you're on, rather than being able to use the data in a bit more robust way. So we want after the record is saved, the object is the opportunity, and where the stage name is equal to closed one. So this time I'm not using is closed. That's a checkbox. The issue with that checkbox is it identifies as checked if it's closed one, closed lost, whereas we only want to generate renewals if it's closed one. And only when a record is updated to meet the condition requirements. This is very important because if the record is updated and continuously meets the requirements, you're going to have duplicate renewals, right, generating. We only want this renewal to generate once, and that's it. So we want this opportunity, when it meets the criteria to do it, meet it once, create the renewal, don't come back into the flow. So that's very important there. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get the products. So we go on ahead, we use the get records function, or element, I should say, where the field opportunity ID is equal to the record opportunity ID. So again, just to grab that, I'll just go to record and I'll select the ID field that I'm using, and it will reference that. And that's the opportunity ID of the record that triggered this flow. In this particular one, this flow, it doesn't matter if we sort them or not, because we're going to use every single one in this. We want all records, not only just the first one, because opportunities can have more than one product. So we're going to go ahead, automatically store the fields and have all records. We then want to grab the contact roles. Now, the reason we grab the contact roles is we want to add the contact roles on as well when we create the opportunity for the renewal. You may want to grab another custom object or a standard object in this process as well. You can easily substitute wherever I reference that out with this. So again, opportunity ID equals record opportunity ID, and we want all records and automatically store the fields. This one here, we're going to create the renewal opportunity. We need to do this first before we do anything else because of the way the relationships work. You can't have the flow trying to insert products when the renewal opportunity doesn't exist to link it. We don't have that ID yet. So we go ahead, we map all the fields we need to create that renewal. We want to create one record, use separate resources. Account ID, I've matched the record account ID. amount, I've matched the record amount. So we're just carrying that data across the renewal. Close date, I've set a new one, which is a new resource called Renewal Date. I'll show you what that resource looks like in a moment. It's essentially a formula. So with resources, you can set formulas and it'll create a value for you. Forecast category, I've hard-coded. The name, I've hard-coded this as well. So what it is renewal, a pipe, and then the actual record name. Next step is to confirm the renewal. The owner ID is the record owner ID. Price book 2 ID. We want to set this, make sure our products are created properly. There's a record price book ID. Stage name, I've set that to needs analysis, and the type is renewal. I'm going to quickly show you renewal date, what that looks like, and then I'll pause for some questions. So what I've done here is essentially taken the record close date. So in a resource, you can have all different types. I've chosen a formula type and used the data type of date. And I've taken the close date and added 365. So added a whole year to that. So that's when we're expecting to close this renewal. Otherwise, their subscription will end. They haven't renewed. We've lost some business. All right, I'm going to pause now for a couple of questions. See, how about capturing changes for values for every and all fields on the object? All right, so this is going back to the first example I went through, and that's a great question. Yeah, you can. This is great. I know there is some limitations to field history about how many fields you can track and everything. The only caution I'll give you to tracking changes to records and fields and all the fields on the object is that you need to make sure when you add a new field to that object, you add that field in your flow. You update your flow to include that. So you update that flow to include your populating it in the audit and everything else. So make sure if you go ahead and implement that, you have a run sheet. So when you have your deployment, that will probably be a post-deployment step. All right, you update the flow, make sure that field's there. But yeah, great question. Any more questions, guys? Chuck them in. I'm going to keep going on ahead with this and get to some more as we go. I've got one quickly here. Does Flow work on big options, Jackson? That's a great question. So I know big objects are very limited in terms of what you can and can't do with them. I'm not quite sure on how Flow works with big objects. I personally have only investigated big objects. I haven't actually implemented them before, but it's worthwhile having a look into that. I think you would find if it does work with it, there'll be quite a few limitations given the fact that how you can interact with big objects in general. All right, moving on to the next part. So we've done so far, just to recap, we've gotten our products, contact roles, and we've created a renewal. It's always handy to name these in a nice way that makes sense to you, right, to the admins. The next one is a decision. We're going to check to see if the opportunity that triggered this, not the renewal one, the original one, has a product. First branch of this, we're checking opportunity product from get product is null and false. Now what this is doing, and I'll show you what this is checking. So if I go here and if I scroll down to my get opportunity products, where did I have that before? Yes, get products, is checking that the variable that's stored in that from our get records opportunity products is populated. Again, I'm using that global constant false to check that, but it's checking to see, is it null? So is it empty? And we want it to be false, which means that it's not empty. I know this is a bit of a double negative here, but what we're checking is that it's not empty. Then the second path is our default path, which essentially means that it has a product, right? Or it has no products. So going in this first path that has no products goes down here to the next step, whereas our other path goes to a loop. So it has a product, and what we're going to do is loop now. If you're not familiar with a loop, if you're familiar with the term of loop when you're coding, essentially the same thing. What we're doing here is taking our collection variable, which was created from the get products element above, and we're looping through this in iterations from the first one to the last one. Now this if you have a scenario where you need things to be created in a certain order in that collection variable, that's where in the previous steps, you would select sort on your get products collection variable. But in this one, it doesn't matter for us. We're going to go loop it through until it gets to the last item. Once it finishes that, it will exit the loop and go down here. What it's going to do every time it loops through, it'll take, let's say we have 4 products. It'll take the first one, it'll go through here, and it'll go to this create records. And using create records, we're creating an opportunity line item record, which is the opportunity product. We're going to set the description, and that's the current item from loop creation of products. And then we go to the description. So that is referencing, this is our first product. That is referencing the description on the first product in our collection variable. So the description, the first product, we use the iPhone 12 example from before, is space gray, is the description 125 gigabytes. That will take that one and use that. It will then use the opportunity ID from the create renewal. So now we're referencing multiple elements in our flow builder. We're using the one that we created just then. We take that opportunity ID. We'll take the price book entry ID from the same price book entry ID that we used on our collection variable, so our opportunity product record. We'll take the product ID, again, the same one from the opportunity product in our collection variable. The quantity, again, this takes it from the collection variable, the quantity. And finally, the total price. And again, from our variable. Once that does the first one, we'll go back, we'll grab the second one, and so on until it is finished. So you could have 20 products here. We'll keep looping through creating those products against that new renewal opportunity. So what you've gone and done now is you've gotten the products, you've gotten the contact roles, you've created a renewal opportunity, and now you've created all the products linked to that renewal opportunity. The last one is the same thing, and we're going to create it for the contact role. So this time we've got a decision element. Having a look at this, the opportunity contact role from the get contact roles is now false. Again, we're checking that to see that it's populated. We've got things in the collection variable. Otherwise, there's no contact role. We'll go down the no path. In here, when it goes to yes, using that same concept again, right? The concept again, where you're looping through, creating opportunity contact roles. And it will loop through. I'll show you what that looks like. So it's our get contact roles, first to last. And the next one here is our create records. So create the opportunity contact role. We've got our contact ID from that loop variable. We've got the is primary from the loop variable. Opportunity ID from the renewal one that we created. And finally, the role from the loop variable. Once that's done, it will exit and go here. And finally, I want my team to have a core task created and assigned to them when that renewal is done. So what we've gone and done here is owner ID is equal to the record owner ID. So this will be the previous opportunity that was just closed one. We're taking that owner and populating that on the renewal on the task. The priority, we'll set that to normal status, not started. Subject, confirm, customer is renewing. Task type is call. The what ID, and that is what does this relate to? This task relates to the opportunity ID from the create renewal. So we're creating a task, linking it to the create renewal, and also assigning it to the owner. And that concludes how to automate the creation of an opportunity renewal. So that's our first one we're going to talk through today. I can see there's some questions come through. Yeah, so Jackson's just followed up. It's not supported in big objects. He just Googled it. So thank you. Guys, I'm going to take a quick pause here. Is there any questions in terms of the elements we used here, what we did, why we did it? I'll give you a couple minutes here to put some questions in before I move on to the next flow that I'm going to talk you through from an opportunity management perspective. So hopefully everyone, while you're thinking of questions, everyone understands the concept of why we use the loop, what the loop is doing, why that is important as well. Because if I get that collection variable and we just do a create records it won't be able to identify which one to use. Right? If we had 5 records in the collection variable, because we're capturing all the records rather than just the first one, it won't be able to identify which one to use, which one to create. The loop, however, will take one by one. You get to choose either from first to last or last to first, depending on how it suits the business. Now, I've seen quite a lot of opportunity sort of concepts like this, renewal concepts. I've implemented some where it's let's say, for example, they have 2 aspects. They have a sales and a service, and they sell a service, the company. Think of an automotive industry. They sell you a car, and they also service your car. First one would be a sales opportunity. And then let's say you've got a service opportunity. The service opportunity shouldn't get created until after the sale is completed. Now, you don't want users to go and do this manually and create the service opportunity, because then that leaves you open to all sorts of issues where users aren't doing it, they're getting lazy, and they're not creating those opportunities. So you can't track those sales. And those services are revenue for you. Create one of these, go through. It will create the opportunity or set it up. You can even create multiple renewal opportunities. Let's say, for example, you had a renewal process which occurred for 1 year, and then another renewal process in 3 years. So a 1 and a 3 year touch point. Should you be able to create that with 2 different create records at the beginning? Right? You just modify, you create another resource for the formula, renewal date 2, I would call it, or renewal date 3 years, and add 3 years onto it. All right, cool. We don't have any questions at the moment, which is all right. And we're going to go moving on to the next. Oh, I think we just got one. Can we add more actions in the loop flow? Is it a best practice to only have 1 or 2 actions? No, you can add, certainly can add a lot more actions to it. I don't think, in all honesty, there is no right or wrong practice. It is just a matter of opinion, right? It all comes down to how your business case is. If you need multiple opportunity products created and looped through, and from that, you also want to create another record, let's say it's a custom object with the opportunity product information in it, then definitely loop through it. Keep in mind of where you place these additional actions based on what information you need. If I want the stuff from that particular opportunity products, and I want to reuse them in multiple actions, then yes, I would use that multiple actions here. If I wanted the opportunity renewal information, reuse it somewhere else, then I would create an action somewhere else that would fit in logically. So yeah, great question there as well. Going on to our next one, and this is a interesting one. I think this is a pretty common use case is you've got the ability to default opportunity teams. If you're using opportunity teams, you have the ability to set up predefined opportunity teams. With flows, you can expand that functionality a lot further. I would say another one from this is adding decisions that would evaluate the opportunity record and determine, based on the data there, who should be assigned it. Like, let's say, for example, the account is in Sydney, therefore Andrew should be assigned it. He should be added as an opportunity team member and give a specific role and everything else. We're just going to do a basic one today, and that is generating an opportunity team member based on the opportunity, a related task. So whoever's assigned a related task in the opportunity means you're working on this opportunity, you've interacted with it. We want you as the opportunity team member. So this is going to be, again, a record triggered flow and only on record creation. So you can see here we've used a record is created. So this is going to be the trigger point. Now I can see we've got another question into the chat quickly. So can we take more decisions? Yeah, you can add as many decisions as you want, as long as you keep track of it, the decision paths, and also that you're not repeating your conditions and they're not canceling out. The important thing to note in the decisions, if I quickly show you this decision down here, is the order you configure these paths here. So if I add another one here, is the order it will be evaluated. So this first one that says no will be evaluated first. then the second one will be evaluated. So keep that in mind when you're making decisions. But yeah, great question. It starts to broaden your horizon when you add more decisions in. You can get more complex scenarios into place rather than going to more complex coding and trying to get that out. So from here, we've got our tasks. I've added 2 conditions. The what ID starts with 006. I'm going to have a quick pop quiz for you guys. I'm going to put you all on the spot here. What object ID starts with 006? Surely there is at least 1 or 2 people that know this. And we've got one person here, Andrew. Yes, it's the opportunity. The opportunity object. Everyone's flooding in now with the opportunity one. Good work, guys. So, tell you the truth, I don't know these ones off by heart. I have a little, Exactival's got it as well. I have a little cheat sheet that I have for this. I'll share it with you when I stop sharing screens. A link has a list of all the standard objects and the starting 3 digits of the IDs. So it's pretty handy. I find it. You just search for it and I'll find it in here. Now, why do we want it to start with 006? Why do we want the opportunity? Well, because we're creating opportunity team members and we only want tasks that are created for an opportunity. If the task is created not related to an opportunity, then we don't care about it in this stage, in our flow. And we also want to check that owner ID is null true, right? So global constant. So is the owner ID null? Actually, looking at that, I think it should be false. I've made a bit of a mistake here, but yeah, it should be false, that one. So we don't want it to be null. All right, so we want the owner ID to be populated, and it's a good spot. When you start to read your own flows and you go over it a bit, you start to realize your mistakes in the. Is there a reason to use what ID field? Yeah, so the what ID field is actually, that's the API name for it. And you can see underneath the label, when you're looking at a task, is related to ID. It's the same field in an event as well. So related to ID. That's the multi-object lookup that goes to things like opportunity, account. If you're wanting to check the person it's related to, whether it's a lead, a contact, that is the who ID, right? Not any object. There is a set of objects that it refers to. That's if you've activated task and events on that object, then it can refer to the object. It will add it to automatically to the task lookup. So the first thing we do is we're going to get opportunity records. So we want the ID of the opportunity to equal the related to ID. Not sorted, and only the first record, because obviously if we have an opportunity ID already, we're only going to get 1 record back because it's going to be an exact match. Because as we know, Salesforce IDs are unique. We want to store all the fields. The next one is we want to get that opportunity teams. So what we're doing here is opportunity team member object. Make sure you have this enabled if you're using it. Opportunity ID is equal to, and from the get opportunity ID, we'll use that same one there. User ID equals record assigned to ID. We want to capture all records and automatically store all fields. Now here, we're going to go to our first thing and we're going to check that has a team member, and that's our decision. So does this record have an opportunity team member? Again, we check from that get, does it have one? Is null true? Right, so that means no, it doesn't. It will go down the no path. Otherwise, yes, it does. And we'll go down the yes path. If it doesn't have an opportunity team member for that record, because remember before we were checking to see on this one, and if you blinked, you would have missed this. We're checking to see that the user ID equals record assigned to ID. So that means the ID of the user on the opportunity team member that already exists needs to match one of these to be returned. Otherwise, it won't be returned. And this filters out if we already have one. So say, for example, we have an opportunity with a team member named Andrew Fragias. That record exists. That's the user. We're checking here. This new task is created, assigned to Andrew Fragias. Then the opportunity team member exists. It will return a value. It will go down to yes. We don't need to create another one. If, for example, we had it and we did all that for Andrew Fragias, but the task was assigned to Sactiville, then we'll go down the no and we go create opportunity team member. And from here, create a simple create records opportunity team member. You set the access level. In this case, I want it to be set to edit. Got a couple options here. So there are 4 options: private, read only, read write, and owner. Now we want this to be on, let's say, read only or read write. We could set it to private as well. So we set it to none or private. Or read write. And read write is edit. Opportunity ID, we'll get that from the get opportunities. We use that same ID again. Team member role, I've coded this in. It's a text field, so I've just written, it's a pick list. I've chosen sales rep. You might have different values if you have a custom values in that. The user ID, we're taking the assigned to ID from the task and using that on the user ID here. And there you go. That's how you add a opportunity team member from a task record. So if you guys have any questions about flows in general or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the chat now. While you do so, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'm going to send you guys that in the chat, the link to a guide of all the prefixes for the objects. So you guys can have that there. So that 006 and every other one. I've chucked it in the chat for you now. Yeah. So that's some of them there. Account ID start with 001. Yep, correct. So it's glad to see some people can remember this off by heart. I personally can't remember these off by heart. While you're coming up with some questions, guys, just one final thing. So next week, I'll be joining my colleague, Guy Hansen, for a webinar to discuss data, everything data. Make sure also, firstly, is our flow next week, Wednesday. After that, on Thursday at 3 p.m. Sydney time, we'll be discussing with Guy Hansen everything to do with data, its role across businesses, the 3 C's of data quality. So if you want to understand more your role in improving that quality of data in your CRM, please feel free to join next Thursday as well, 3 p.m. I'll put the link to join that session in the chat for you guys. So some questions, I guess, of now, we can relate multiple records to one task. Can we relate same way using flow logic? So yeah, if you want to relate multiple records to one task, you can do that as well using flow logic. Obviously, you would make sure you use separate variables for each record. Any other questions, guys? Use this time now. We've got a couple more minutes. I've chucked a couple links in the chat for you guys. So that first one's the Salesforce IDs. We've also got a link to the webinar, which is on Thursday. So next week's big week. Wednesday, we've got account management flows. We'll go through that. Next Thursday, we've got data quality. There's a webinar on that as well. So feel free to join that. If you guys have any feedback, anything else you want to see in next week's sessions, please let me know so I can prepare that for next week's session. Any particular questions on flows or Spring 21 release, also feel free to let me know in the chat. Now, if you want to get the recording, we will share that recording as well. So I'm going to stop recording.